refuse to run and hide. All the weight is lifted off my shoulders. I will not hold this in any longer. I know you thought that it would kill me, but it has only made me stronger.
Good evening, everyone. This is Let It Out, coming from Plug Studio Network. Hosting tonight by myself, Raphael Jones. Wishing for our host, Tobosha's Rochester, a speedy recovery and come back to us soon. Tonight we'll have a video by CTW. The song is from Form Into the Light. Into the Light by CTW. Tonight's show is about ancestors and how do we connect with our ancestors. All right. A lot of people don't realize how important it is to connect to your ancestors. And a lot of people don't understand who your ancestors are. You got to think about it. Truthfully, anyone that's like the elder of the family, on through, on back, are your ancestors. How well do you connect with, past lives of your of generations and generations of family? Good evening, Alicia. How are you? Tonight we're going to try to touch into that a little bit. So feel free to call in at 302-312-3534. Call in and let it out, man. Let us know what you know. Come into it and let me know what you think about it. Because you think about it all, like when it comes down to your ancestors, a lot of people don't realize where that actual thing come from. Africans been doing it for many, many, many years. Even when they reaching out to their oasis, which is their spiritual life of being and everything is they're reaching for their ancestors. A lot of people who read the Bible quote on to why they say don't cut your hair. It's dealing with your ancestors. They allow them to believe that you gain knowledge and strength and wisdom through your hair, through your ancestors. So some people, when you sit there and you think about it, everybody that was before you are considered your ancestors. If you have access to the patriarch of your family, that's a blessing. That's an ancestor that you can talk to, and they would give you more input to who you are. Then you have those who visit, like the cemeteries, the grave. Some people don't like it, but you can reach to your ancestors through their gravestones. Or if you learn how to meditate and other ways, you can always reach to your ancestors. And not saying that they're going to answer you right back, but you will gain a knowledge that will actually help you find out who you are. Some people rather go through ancestries and find out who their ancestors really are. That's another fantastic way of finding out who you are and where you come from. So a lot of times you sit there and you think about it. You think about why everything that works for you. Why things that you want to work for you don't work for you. It's not always as like you having what they call bad luck. Sometimes it's not in the cards for you to just have. It's like that you have to reach out to your ancestors and see how life was for them. Meaning that sometimes the life that you're living is parallel to the life that they have lived. So you might want to reach out and see how far back you can go to see anyone that's in your background. Now let's figure this out. What are your ancestors? A lot of people don't know. Your ancestors are anyone, the generation before you on up. Sometimes they're alive, sometimes they're not. But they are your ancestors. But you can go further back beyond them to seek more, to find out more, to see more of where you're from. Our own Tobocious Rochester, her ancestor is Harriet Tubman. She knows this 100%. So that means that she can always reach back into her spirit realm to find out anything she needs to know, and hopefully that she would get the answer that she needs. A lot of people are fortunate to have some powerful people as our ancestors, and some people aren't. But it doesn't make you any less. It just means that your life and the pattern that your ancestors lived have actually lived in a certain way that your family is to go. The Most High has a way of showing your family who they are. If you're meant to be rich and successful in everything in the world, it will happen. If not, don't take that as a loss. It's just what it is. Good evening, Brenda Jones. Good evening, sweetie. How are you? But this is the thing. These are the things that you must look at when it comes down to ancestry and everything else that comes with it. You may have you may have been adopted and gone as a different direction. You can always still search down your ancestors to find out more. Go with the first and last name of the person that you actually know. Then from that point on, move, keep going, keep pushing. Eventually you will find them. You will find out everything you need to know. Some people realize things that, all because they were adopted or brought into this family, they would never know who their real ancestors were during that time. It is always easy to find out someone. You can always look it up. You can go to the National Archives. You can always find out, because although you're the only name that you know, the name that you may have heard can go from there, and you'll find out the rest of the people that you have never met at all. Probably find out that, like myself, crazy enough, it's not that it's through my ancestors, but it's more so that it's crazy enough that I went to school with a lot of my family, a lot of my people, and didn't know that they were all related to me. And then when I got to know my other side of the family, come to find out they live really, really long, 100 years old, 95 years old. I mean, we've been blessed with a longevity of life. So I'm able to go to one of my aunts right now, and she's able to tell me a lot of stuff dealing with my grandparents, my great-grandparents, because they know all of them. So that's how you can find out more about who you are through your ancestors. And sometimes you relate closer to one of your families. Like an uncle, maybe not even a first cousin or not even a brother or sister, but you relate to someone that lived that same exact life that you lived. It may not go the exact same way. Maybe you're the second reason why you're here, so that you can make success out of something that someone else wasn't able to do. All of that comes through your ancestors. You find out who and what you are, what you're about, and who knows you, and who you can get to know. Because a lot of times people pay attention to their aunts, their uncles, not realizing that that's part of your ancestors. That's part of your journey through your life. Some people don't realize things that they think that the person that they're getting a lot of information from sometimes can be wrong, when in fact they're probably dead on. Don't always think that people speak horrible things into your spirit until you actually know what spirit they came from first, because you always find out that maybe that's the closest to your most oldest ancestor that you'll ever know. And at the same time that you learning that, you get to find out who else in this family knows about this. What else is that? You have some families that have bad backgrounds. Hey, I know you can you'll find them. They have bad things in their background. They bring negative spirits to you all the way around, so you don't know if you can trust or believe in them or whatever. But something about that person, you find this familiar feeling That's part of your ancestors speaking to you, saying, "Be close to this one. Find out what's going on first, or stay away from this one because you're gonna pull you off track." All the time, your ancestors are around you, and they're always talking to you, regardless of where you think you're from or where you're not. I had a couple of friends of mine who sat there and realized, like, no, I'm from the United States. I'm not from Africa. I'm like, no, search your family. You could be like the only, like the third generation that's in the United States. Some people have very close ties to Africa that they don't even know, to their original ancestors that they don't even know. Meaning, as I've known people that was like third generation, second or third generation, that was actually born free in the United States. Their other ancestors originally came from Africa, and they didn't know it. Hold on, let me see. Peach says people pay to their pray to their ancestors, but you have to be careful to call a specific person. That's true. That's true. You do not want to call out anyone. That's why it's good to know your background because sometimes you may pull something out that's not even not even cool. If my current family is any indication of my ancestors, then my ancestors were, yeah, yeah, they were psychic, yeah. Sometimes, like I said, you find them. You find them by looking deeper into your family. You find them. You will find them. You hear people every day that will come out and like, well, man, I'm having such a hard time, this, that, and the other, that, and the third. My luck is down. That's not because your luck is down. You just got to find out who you are first. You may not supposed to have that. You're supposed to go a different route. And the only person that can have you go through that and understand it, other than the Most High, is your ancestors. They would teach you. They would teach you on your way. They would teach your journey. Trust me. I mean, I went through the African rites of passage to earn my African name and to learn more about ancestries and all. And going through my journey, I learned things about me that I never ever thought about. How I never asked for help. How I never look for someone to do stuff for me, and when they do, it makes me feel some kind of way. All of that is due to the fact that I come from a very proud background, to the point that I never caught on to it. But going through the rites of passage, I was stuck in the bog trying to get out, and I had to stop and ask one of the Babas that was with me, I'm ready for you to help me. Can you please help me out? This gentleman came out there and sat with me and talked with me until I had enough strength and courage to get out myself. And what that did was that awakened something in me that shows that every now and then I need to learn to ask for that help when I need help. I never thought of that. And then they came to me and said, well, maybe your ancestor actually was one of those people that let you know that you're going to need help. So ask for the help. Then, let me see. Yeah, their temperament may not be agreeable. A lot of religious people tell you it's sinful to pray. Yeah, that's true. They do say that to just pray to the ancestors. But Jesus and Muhammad is, I mean, and someone's ancestors. That is true. Probably why they don't work, for blacks. The problem comes in with that. That is absolutely true. The church would not want you to talk to the ancestors because y'all gonna learn some truth. One of the truth that the church is going has omitted from the church is that how they call Halloween the pagans' holiday, when in fact it was a Christian way. It was actually a really good holiday. It was a thing where you went to the grave sites of your ancestors and speak with them. It was a thing that you go and bring. You have certain worships in your home that deals with your ancestors doing a thing. And it's called All Hallows Eve. It wasn't a bad thing. It was actually a great thing. But so many people, the church thing got into it and decided to turn it into a pagan holiday. Then you got people that go to church and go, Halloween is bad. Don't let your kids do this and the other. It wasn't until later that they decided to dress up as ghosts and goblins and all this other stuff to walk the street, trick or treat, all that other good stuff. It wasn't so way late in life. But in the very beginning, it was actually a great holiday. It was for people to go and visit their ancestors. That's actually what a lot of, in certain African tribes, they still do to this day. Because if you understand, in Africa, there's not really there's a lot of tribes that doesn't have concept of hell. So there's no evil. They don't know of evil. So most of that is them visiting the ancestors. I visit the ancestor, my Oasia of Obatala, which is who I am under the Egbe Ngogo ring. I am a child of Obatala. I visit the ancestor site of Obatala. I brought him fruit, and then I laid in front of his temple. You understand? These are the things that you do for your ancestors, and that will bring you closer to that spiritual life. Some people think that speaking that with their ancestors is crazy, like they don't have the actual mindset to say that it's okay to do. But in fact, it's a great thing to do, because the more you do that, the more you get to learn who you are. And Latin American, they celebrate it as a good thing. Day of the Dead. Yep, Day of the Dead. That's what they do in Latin. Yep, when you're the closest to your ancestors. That is true. That is true. The Day of the Dead is actually true for a lot of Latin American people. It is true. That's a big celebration too when they do it. If you have never seen it, look, Google it, whatever. The Day of the Dead festivals in Latin America, they will they really give a serious festival for that. Meaning, as they speaking to their ancestors, they're reaching out to their ancestors that probably have gotten them there. So they bring it up to the forefront that they give them a celebration. You have a lot of people right now that have family that have passed on. And every year, even on Facebook, every year they'll put on their, rest in peace, such and such, or, happy heavenly birthday, or to such. That's still the same, pretty much the same thing of reaching out to your ancestors. But you have to be sure of who you really want to talk to and how you really get involved and get in conversation with them. It's not always like a mystical thing that you got to pray to God first, then talk to your ancestors. No. You are human. You can speak. Your ancestors will eventually either come to you in a dream, come to you in certain ways that you will only know that was your answer. Don't think that answer came to you because you was just that brilliant all the time. Sometimes you do have that help. That ancestor do reach out to you. So you're going to want to try to find every way there is to make every part of your life important. Reaching out to the elders of your family. Sometimes families are divided, and the most eldest member of the family is on the other side. There's always times like that happen. You can find out still. You can still find out. You can always go through. Best way to find out. Some people go through the National Archives to find their family, and that works. You find out how far back you can go. Um, although it's a movie, but it's what they showed in the Black Panthers. Yeah, yeah. There's things in the Black Panthers that they show. Yeah, that had anything to do with your ancestors. It does. You gotta look it up though. You gotta really check it out. Some things are really really deep and they don't even understand it. Um, you have movies that came out that showed uh, what they believe in, like what they believe as the Walking Dead, where people came back to life, like in Hades and everything else like that. Um, they're and like down Louisiana. Louisiana is a strong state to be in when you talking about ancestors and everything else. They have a lot. They have a lot of stuff down there that some people some of their roots can tie back down to towards that area. Um, if your if your roots if you find the first surviving part of your family here in the United States, like if you could find out where you know where they were, or where they were captive or held at, sometimes you can actually find out from that point of what part of Africa or wherever they came from. So then you start digging deeper to find out even more about more people that you have never heard of. You'll start getting names of tribes that you have never ever knew. And some of these tribes that you look up, some of them are still in existence to this day. Um, you can always find out. You can always find out who your ancestors are and how close they are to the family. Um, your ancestors, like I said, is always with you. There's never been a time where they're not looking over you. You can always reach and talk and speak to them. There are books on how to locate your ancestors or how to speak to them. There have been a lot of books. I may not have none of the names off the top of my head as of right now, but there are a lot of books out there that will actually teach you how to relate to your ancestors. What will make it more understanding to you of what is closer to you in your mind of who your ancestors are and where they're from it's sometimes they say that if it's something negative, it will be harder for you to find who your ancestors are. And you got to be ready for whatever it is, good or bad, that you find out about your ancestors. Had a friend of mine explain that to me, and I didn't understand it because I was trying to get him to pull up a street down in Baltimore, Maryland, that was named after after a family member. And he asked me, he said, "Are you prepared to find out, you know, who this person is?" He said, "Because if it was hard for you to find it through your family, it may be something good or bad dealing with that family member. Are you prepared to know?" And I had to sit there and think about what he was saying to me. He said, "Because not all people ancestors are the ones that they find. That's the great ones." I said, that's deep. So I asked him, I said, "So, like, what do you mean?" I had to go further. Like, what do you mean? He said, "Sometimes people ancestors could have been uh, stricken from the books because of how horrible or how terrible they may be." So I'm sitting there going, okay, let's see what is he talking about. So I went to the location and I sat there and I tried to see if I can get a good feel or a good understanding of this neighborhood. But this neighborhood was torn down to the fact that it didn't even it didn't even dawn on me that this neighborhood was named after someone probably that was so horrible. So I said, okay, I still want to know more. You don't have to stop when you come to a roadblock. My uncle came to a roadblock and he stopped. I promised him, I said I would find out as much as I can before I go home. I'm going to find out as much as I can about my family. So I reached out to the patriarchs of my family. One of them didn't want me to know. The other one didn't know how to explain it to me, so she held back. So I was like, okay, maybe it's something there that I'm not supposed to know right now. But I'm not going to give up because I need to know as far back as I can possibly get. I really do. And I'm telling you to do the same. A lot of us need to do the same because a lot of us don't know where we're from or what we have done or who our ancestors made. You never know. Your ancestors probably been in the warehouse working on the first radiator along beside that black man who made it. You never know who you are related to. You never know. It took me a long time to realize, hey, my grandfather played for Count Basie. I didn't know that because the only thing I seen was this man that was upstairs that was always mean. But as we go along, we start learning who we are related to, who we are with. And then maybe it's our turn to pick up that torch and run with it ourselves. So you never know what part of your life was given to you for a purpose and what part of your life you served that purpose in. You got to know that your ancestors are there to help you, to help you learn and to know what you are about. Not a lot of people know that. Not a lot of people know that. And it is really sad because a lot of people don't take that time to learn. They're looking at their street life and not looking at their real life. And you really need to know who you're from, what kind of stock you're made of. So we're going to get ready to take a break. We're going to go to a video. Again, the video is by CTW, and it's called From In the Light by CTW. Hit you right.
Let it form into light, perfect and divine. Everything be fine, made by your design. Let it form into light, perfect and divine. Everything be fine, made by your design. Yeah, the world is turning upside down, but I'm so upright. And you can come from dust and cloth, but you ain't cut right. There's nothing never new under the sunlight. You try to hide right, nowhere to run right. On lockdown, no day around, got no common sense. Been stuck this way for so long that it's so hard to repent. There's no shame in my sins, no love for family or friends. Life and relationships will soon come to an end, but we keep the money coming in. Like I never heard of a bad time, moving like I'm the fast five. Drive the whip like I'm Paul Walker, turn the whip into a spaceship and now I'm feeling like I'm a skywalker. If your bitch around, I'm a sweet talker, and she ain't talking to no cheap talker. Stack it up to a skyscraper, got shorty shaking her money maker. I've been living a hard life being rapper than sandpaper. Now I'm getting them dame dollars, so I'm balling harder than trailblazers. Trusting Christ was a lifesaver, and I ain't better than God's favor. I say what I want to, as I please, and get no fucks. I just do my thing, I mind my own and smoke my blood. Niggas say they know me, but don't know me, oh my God. So niggas can't say we blood, if they do not know the blood. Let it form into light, perfect and divine. Everything be fine, made by your design. Let it form into light, perfect and divine. Everything be fine, made by your design, yeah. The world is turning upside down, but I'm so upright. And you can come from dust and cloth, but you ain't cut right. There's nothing never new under the sunlight. You try to hide right, nowhere to run right.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is your host Raphael Jones. If you wasn't tuned in earlier, we're talking about how you connect with your ancestors. How do you connect with your ancestors? And if you have any idea of how and the way that you have done it on your journey, feel free to call in at 302-312-3534. We are waiting on your call. Again, like I said, tonight's show is about how to connect with your ancestors. Now, a lot of family members have pictures all over the house of their ancestors. So, what do you do? Do anybody ever really recognize or really ask the elders of the family about that elderly person that's in the picture? What about them? Who are they? What did they do? What kind of person they were? Were they good? Were they bad? Were they nice? Were they mean? You never know. But you probably find that as one of the first, nurse at a certain hospital or doctor of their actual tribe or village or other things. You'll find out anything if you ever try to reach out to find out who your ancestors really are. You got a lot of young cats out here that they out here on the streets, they doing their dues, they're out there being knuckleheads or whatever. They out there getting it, whatever they call it, But then some of them come to the conclusion where they find out who their ancestors are and instantly start acting right. They don't understand where they are, where they're from, and what they should be doing. You sit out there, you try your best to think getting all that money is actually the greatest thing in the world, when in fact your ancestors already laid it down where you probably get more money than what you're getting on the street. You never know. You never know. Tonight I want to also promote P Originals starting March 1st, coming to you March 1st. Be sure to stay tuned to see any advertisements that you can get to get into it. It's called P Originals, starting March 1st. Now, when we saying about the ancestors, more so was you sometimes play against who you are. You play against your ancestors. You play against the spiritual guidance of your family. What that means is sometimes you're pushing hard to do something that you're not supposed to be doing. There's always somebody that's there to be able to tell you that you will always be able to, if you start deeply looking into your ancestry, you may find out, I don't need to do this. I don't need to be out here doing that. I have other things that I could be doing, and I could be making very good money with it by doing this. Hey, my ancestors made this. Maybe I can go back and see if we still have ties in it and regenerate that family legacy. There's always ways to do that. Alicia says the Baltimore problem, the biggest problem Baltimore City has is that a lot of young people don't know who their family is, and they later find that they're dating cousins. Yeah, that's also true. If you don't know who your if you don't know who your family are, it kind of can be real crazy, because in Baltimore, a lot of people have been dating their cousins and not knowing that they really are. If you don't know your background, your full background of your family. Like I said, I went to school with a lot of my cousins and never knew that they were my cousins. You know what I mean? I was in middle school with one of my little sisters, and I didn't know that she was one of my little sisters. It was crazy because her and I was on the band together, and come to find out that was my sister. There's oh my goodness, I could tell you many stories about coming across a cousin or or a family member. And I met my little brother when he was 2 and didn't see him again until he was 22. So it's been some things that you can that yeah, it throws it out there. Then you realize, oh man, this is my family. Although in God's eye, we are all brothers and sisters, but when you talking about literal, I mean that's brothers and sisters. I was in a I was on a band with I was on a choir with my first cousin. We done shows together. We talked junk and everything, and we did not know. We did not know. Good evening, Damien. Good evening. Good evening. We did not know that uh, that we was related until we graduated. Well, until I graduated, and I had to call her back and say, "Hey, you know such and such," and so she was like, "Yeah, that's my." I said, "Oh my goodness." I said, "We're first cousins." She said, "No." So it was one of those things where we just realized we were family. Um, we have it's been a lot of times where you can where if you don't know your ancestors and where you're from, yeah, it can get real thick out there. Um, Most of my family migrated from North Carolina, just like everybody else did, and you would never know who was actually related to each other. But I have family all over America now, and I got a chance to meet, or I've already known quite a few of them. So that wasn't exactly just finding ancestors. That was more so finding out who your family is. But also, if you have some ancestors that have deep roots somewhere else, yeah, you're gonna run across that same thing. You always want to find out more. You always want to find out more of who your ancestors are. Speak on them, talk to them, get to know them if you can, or go to the site of where they're buried to get to understand it. Sit with them. Some people sit until they get a feeling or understanding of who this person that they're looking at their headstone is. It do come to you. It does touch your body. It really does. You have to know. Brenda says you have to know who is who. Yeah, you really do need to know who is who. Like I said, some people get adopted, and they look up the ancestors of their adopted family, not realizing that that's not their ancestor. So then they have to go on a search to find out. Nah, that's not my family. Let me see where I come from. And I was that person in my family that says I really need to know where I come from. So when I got a chance to really try to look into who my family is, the only part of my family I was able to find out more was my father's side more than I found out on my mother's side. So if I really want to do the ancestry search on my father's side, which a lot of times you will want to do that because it's more so where they from is exactly where you can almost direct where you're from. D. Nancy says, I think it's on the elders in the family to pass that knowledge, that knowledge down to the younger generation, who they are and where they come from. Yeah, that's true. That is true that they should be able to do that. But you have some elders who would rather hold the darkest secrets of their family and probably take it to the grave with them, even though you still will want to know who and where you're from. Okay, Dino says finding out your family tree and learn more about them will allow you to learn more about yourself and your habits, traits. Yes, it would. It will help you to learn more about yourself all the way through. That will help you find yourself like tremendously, because if you get to know who your family tree is, sometimes, like I said, sometimes you don't relate to the ones that you're around, but then come to find you relate to this distant uncle or a grandparent that passed away years before you were born. You'll find that your your inner being of who you are actually comes in from looking at who the stock you come from. Like I said, you must do a research on your family to seek who your ancestors really are, because you may have an opportunity to either meet them while they're still here or go find where they are laying to this day. D. Nancy says, in Africa culture, that happens in stories from, from form of, yeah, of what's that? Of grouts. Yeah. That's how you find out everything. And and Dino said that's true. Yeah, that is true. You got to find out like who your ancestors are. It's not a point of saying like, oh, you want to see that you're better than, but you want to know who you are. Some people walk this world, probably even go to their grave not knowing who they are, not knowing how important they are, not knowing how important their family is. So you don't have everyone around you at all times to tell you, but those that you do have, cherish it. Try to find out what you can. Sit down with them one day. Take them out to lunch. Sit down and talk to any one of your elders of the family and get to know that they are there for a reason. Alicia says, my father's mother gets, hold on, okay. When you ask her, yeah, they get upset about sometimes when you ask about family history, and that's because there was something that happened. Like I said, you got to be ready, good or bad. You got to be ready. So you got to understand what happened back then to make them shut down from you. It's not that they exactly shutting down from you. It's more so that they don't want to live or relive the situation over again, thinking that it would affect the family. The family may have some horrible secrets, horrible secrets, which at some point it can be bad. It can make you feel bad. It can go real left for you. But at the same time, you can always find out what else. What before that? How was the family before that? What happened then? If there's a certain part of your family that you can skip to get to the good parts that you really need to know, there's a way that you can do it if need be. Damien says family trauma is real, is a real thing. Yeah, it is. It really is. Because sometimes whatever happened in the family could have condemned y'all to where y'all are. You grew up in a horrible neighborhood. You grew up in a rough kind of living. Y'all always been broke since you've known it, and this, that, and the other. It probably wasn't always that way before that. It probably was never really always that way, especially if you're an ancestor from Africa, you were not always broke. Trust me. So you're going to want to find out more. You're going to want to find out a whole lot more. So it is always, like I said, ways of finding out your family, like Ancestry. Some people go to Ancestry.com, but you can also go to the archives to find out the oldest name of the family that you know of and pull up from there, and they will tell you some stuff from there. There's always ways of finding out your family. Your family is who you are. It's not saying that you're just one individual of a family. You also live through that. You live through it, because sometimes I never understood where a lot of my ways come from. I'm not saying that I'm extremely knowledgeable, but I am going to say that for some strange reason, I have certain knowledge about things that I probably haven't lived. And for some reason, I've always had that way of being able to talk to my friends and family and say certain things for them to actually understand that there's something else there. Coming from my father's side of the family, I understand that one of my aunts who passed away, she was 95 when she did, and um, she was a midwife. She was a midwife to some of her family members. She's she's done, oh my goodness, she's done countless amount of things. And we all found out later on that she was just this wonderful, wonderful woman. She was funny. She was really funny. But she passed away at the age of 95. And then I had another aunt that passed not so long after her at the age of 90. So as you can see, my family lived very long. D Nancy says family reunion are extremely important. Always. See, my Jones side of my family don't really have family reunions. So we have these family gatherings that we do from time to time. But a true family reunion, yeah. You probably learn, like I said, you probably learn that you relate more to your distant cousin more than you do to your first cousin or anybody that's close. You find out that you probably relate more to them. And it's like, if you're one of those people that have the brain power to do more things than you're seeing around you, yeah, 9 times out of 10, you want to look to your ancestors to find out more of what it is. Not just for, D. Nancy said, not just for the food and activities, but the fellowship is important. Yeah, always. The fellowship in the family reunion is always important because I'm going to tell you, that's when you find out more of the ancestors that passed away. You'll find out more about them during that time. You'll have one aunt that's like, well, we don't talk about that. Then you find the other aunt like, well, this is what happened. And that's the one who sits back in the chair and will tell you, yeah, you kind of remind me of him or her or whatever. Yeah. And then you try to find out more about that person. D-Net says that talk to those older relatives that have the knowledge. Yeah, you always want to go to the oldest relative that you can of your family to receive the knowledge of who you are. Because, like I said, they may not be talking directly to you and saying that that's who you are, but you'll find something in that conversation that relates to you. And that is real. That is real. You'll find someone that relates to you so well by just a conversation with one of the elders. So, yeah, I really believe wholeheartedly to look forward, try to connect, try to find a way to connect to your ancestors, try to find ways to connect. Because also, you got to look at it. One of the things that people also misconstrued is that you go to the church to find out certain things, but it's not part of who your ancestry is. Sometimes your ancestors never even step foot in a church, but you still want to find out who they are and what they are about and what they do. Always go with what else happened or when or the why factor of why was it like this? Why was it like that? Continue until you can't ask no more questions. Continue. Not saying continue badgering a person. Continue on your journey until you cannot ask any more questions. Find out who your family is. Some people don't go as far because they think they come across this Caucasian man and they're like, nah, that's not who I am. That's this, that, and the other. That's that, and the third. Well, our surname, our last names come from maybe a Caucasian person, which was known of us who have slaves, who were slaves, that we took on the last name of our masters. But what you want to do is try to go back as far as you can. Because if you can go past that master's name, you will also find out the slaves that he owned, the names of the slaves that he owned, and maybe pick out the seed, what part of that seed that your family come from, and then you can go further from that point on through. You heard Alex Haley did the same thing with Roots. Now, if you've seen the Roots that came out back in the 1970s stuff like I've watched, you got the gist of it and understand of it. If you looked at the new Roots that came out recently, it was able to show more about who Alex Haley's family were, and a lot of them were Muslim, and they didn't know it. They couldn't from the first Roots. You wouldn't be able to tell it. But yeah, they were Muslims. They were villages of people that were Muslim, and you didn't even know it back then. The Islamic faith has been around for a long time. So, yeah, you may have been, depending on what part of Africa your ancestors are from, you may have been Muslim. You never even know. So, like I said, a lot of times you can go against your ancestors and not even know it. Not even know it. But in the same token, you want to sit there and you want to be sure that you get all the information that you can. Reaching out to your ancestors is very, very important. Dino said it is the way you can find your family curse. Cause we all have them. It could be alcohol, right, or drugs, or child molestation, etc. Right. We as men in the family need to help break them. Yeah. A lot of times our family does come with a lot of luggage. I mean, a lot of luggage, and you gotta try to a lot of that. It's real. It's that's strong. That's deep though. It is strong. That's true, Dino. But yeah, you have people who live through alcoholism in your family. You want to know, all of a sudden this person decided to do drugs. Where did that come from? Something like that could have been related to someone else in the past that they picked up of their spirit, and that does happen. Everybody in your whole family doing great except this one cousin or this one uncle that's in the back bedroom of the house or something like that. So you really going to want to know, what parts of your family. Like I said, that's probably also to say that. That is also a part where you can probably see that there's that dark secret that the family don't want to talk about. So they won't tell you all about your ancestors in the background. You could come across that one of your ancestors are murderers. And you wouldn't even know it. And you come from a family of people that were really, really hard and mean people. Or you can reach far back and say that you came from the ancestor of, let's say you have somebody like Nat Turner as your ancestor. That would be deep. That would be deep because you'll find out more and more of who you are for real, how strong your stock really is. So you want to sit back and you want to get to learn your ancestors so that you can have a way. You can have a way to teach your children or the children under you. Maybe one day you'll be the elder of the family and you need to tell these stories. One day you may be, I have a friend right now, my best friend. He is the elder for his family right now. He's lost everybody that was ahead of him. He is now the elder of his family. And to him, he thinks that it's kind of like, wow. And yeah, after a while, it does get that way. At a young age, he's the elder of his family. So you're gonna want to try to see how much you can get of your family before anything happens, to the point where you cannot tell the legacy of your family from generation to generation, where they from, what happened here. I would like to trigger that mind tonight that makes you want to go find who you are, where you're from, what did you do, What families was mixed into you? And trust me, yeah, a lot of family members have a lot of mixed in. You have your Caucasian side that's in that family. You have your Native American side that's in that family, and yeah, it did mix. The bloodlines did cross, but you still want to find out who and where you're from. Always want to find that out. Always push to do that, because the more you know of your ancestors, the more you know of the life that you're living, the more to know that how strong you really are. Because some people give up. They give up not knowing how strong they really, really are. They're so busy and so ready to give up. They go into dialysis, they going through all these different kind of things, but they realize something, that they are still here. Why are they pushing hard? Why are they trying to survive? Because something in their ancestors said to survive. They have a hard time to survive, but they also have the strength to push and go further. Brenda says, I'm definitely going to find out. Yes. Yeah, baby. It's best for you to find out, because it's like right now. My wife, she just came in. She is actually the elder of her family. She is now the elder of hers, and she is the older mother of hers, but she of her part of her generation of family. And it's kind of odd to think that we're close to the same age, and that she has that. She's that elder. So you sit there and you think all the time that your elders are old, or your ancestors going to be old. You probably had an ancestor that died way too early. My grandmother passed when my mom was 13. So that was, and my mother's right now 73, 74. Yeah, so that was some time. You never know. You never know how far back you have to reach to find out anything. So, tonight, your homework is to find out as much as you can about your ancestors. So, hopefully, I can help you along that way, or I have helped you along that journey to find out who they are. Make sure, it is not always within the church that you need to know who and where you're from. That's true. That is whole true. You do not always need to go to the church to find it. It's always about finding out who you are, so you can relate to your ancestors. So I like to at this time, I like to say I thank y'all for being out here with me tonight, speaking with us. Keep our host in prayer, and hopefully she'll be back real, real soon. So we're going to say good night to you. Thank you for joining me. Hope I touched somebody and helped them go along. Again, this is Let It Out from Plug Studio Network. This is Raphael. I'll talk to you.
I'm up against the fight of my life. I'm so afraid to sleep at night. You won't get away. It's time for me